There is an exact temperature at which human panic becomes visible. I have found it sits right around 68 degrees in a corporate boardroom, precisely when the sweat beads at the hairline of a man who just realized his career is bleeding out. I do not precipitate the panic. I just build the room, lock the doors, and watch them suffocate. My name is Sloan Vance. For the last 7 years, I have been the Client Solutions Lead for Ironclad Logistics. That title sounds vague, which is intentional. It means I fix things. It means when a predictive ledger algorithm for a Fortune 100 company hallucinates and routes a critical payload of Phase 3 biologic therapies to a defunct warehouse in Tempe, I am the one they call at 3 a.m. I do not panic. I do not scream. I just move the pieces on the board until the problem disappears. I do not smoke. I do not drink before 6 p.m. I write with a Mont Blanc pen that cost more than my first car, and I know the names of the children of every C-suite executive in my portfolio. I am the invisible glue that holds a $5 billion portfolio together, and the crown jewel of that portfolio was Marcus Thorne. Thorne isn't his real name, obviously, but the money is real. $5 billion of annual contract value, real. He is the kind of client who doesn't sign contracts. He signs alliances. He is old school. He hates slide decks. He hates buzzwords. He hates people who try to sell him things he didn't ask for. We had a rhythm, Thorne and I. We spoke in shorthand. A nod meant yes. A silence meant fix it. And a phone call meant the building was burning down. In 7 years, he had never threatened to leave, not once. Then came Preston Blake. Our CEO, Garrison Wells, a man whose spine is made of wet cardboard, decided we needed to modernize. Apparently, consistent record-breaking profits were too boring. We needed disruption. We needed synergy. We needed a VP of strategic growth who looked like he had been manufactured in a lab funded by LinkedIn influencers. Preston breezed into the boardroom for the all-hands meeting like he was hosting a talk show. He had the teeth. He had the tan. He had the energy of a golden retriever that had just ingested a bag of espresso beans. "Team," he started, clapping his hands together. The sound echoed in the silence. "I am here to tell you that good isn't good enough anymore. We need to be great. We need to be agile. We need to trim the fat." I sat in the back taking notes in my leather-bound notebook. I have seen guys like Preston before. They come in every 3 years, break everything they touch, collect a massive severance package, and fail upward to the next company. Usually, I just keep my head down, protect my clients from their stupidity, and wait for them to implode. It is a survival mechanism. Preston's eyes scanned the room. When they landed on me, there was a flicker of something that wasn't quite recognition. It was assessment. But he didn't see a shark. He saw a middle-aged woman in a charcoal blazer. He saw legacy. He saw furniture. He didn't know that 3 months ago, Thorne's entire European cryo-transit network almost collapsed because of an automated freight routing API failure. He didn't know that I manually coordinated the rerouting of 45 cargo jets while sitting on the floor of my low-do loft in pajamas, ensuring Thorne didn't lose a single cent. Thorne didn't even know about that. I never told him. That is the job. The client sleeps well because I do not. After the meeting, Garrison Wells, looking nervous, ushered Preston over to me. "Preston, this is Sloan," Garrison said, sweating slightly. "She handles the Thorne account. It is our keystone." Preston smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. It was a smile made of porcelain and ambition. "Sloan, a pleasure. I have heard interesting things. You have been on this account for a long time." 7 years, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I offered my hand. His grip was moist and weak, like holding a dead fish. 7 years, he repeated, letting out a performative sigh. "That is a lifetime in this industry. Maybe too long. You get complacent. You stop seeing the forest for the trees." My blood temperature dropped about 10 degrees, but my face remained a mask of polite interest. Mr. Thorne values consistency. He is not fond of change for the sake of change. Preston chuckled. He actually chuckled like I was a child explaining why I believed in the tooth fairy. "Oh, Sloan, everyone loves change if you sell it right. I have been looking at the ledgers. The margins on the Thorne account are stagnant. We are over-servicing him. Too many hours, too much hand-holding. We are leaving money on the table." "We are not selling him a service, Preston," I said, my voice hardening just a fraction. "We are selling him reliability. If we cut support, he walks. Nobody walks away from a contract this size, Preston said, waving his hand dismissively. He is bluffing. He has you wrapped around his finger. But there is a new sheriff in town now. I want you to set up a QBR, a quarterly business review for next week. I want to meet this guy. And Sloan, I will be leading the presentation. I stared at him. The Thorn QBR was sacred ground. It wasn't a presentation, it was a conversation. We didn't use slides. We sat in armchairs, drank black coffee, and discussed global logistics trends. Bringing Preston into that room was like bringing a clown to a funeral. Preston, I said carefully, Thorn doesn't do standard presentations. Just book it, he interrupted, turning his back to me to check his phone. And send me your deck by Friday. I will need to polish it. We need to dazzle him. Lots of graphs, hockey stick growth, you know the drill. I stood there for a moment watching him walk away. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, sounding like a flat line. He had just ordered me to construct a bomb and place it directly under the foundation of our company. He thought I was just an admin with a fancy title. He thought I was a relic. He had absolutely no idea that the stagnant margins he complained about were the result of me spending company resources to fix internal screw-ups before they reached the client. He didn't know that I was the only reason the Thorn account existed at all. I went back to my desk. My hands were steady, but my heart was hammering a war drum against my ribs. I opened my email. I saw the calendar invite from Preston. Thorn account strategy, new direction. I looked at the accept button. I clicked it. If he wanted a show, I would give him a show. But first, I had to prepare. Not for the meeting, but for the war. I opened a new folder on my private drive. I named it The Exit. And then I picked up my phone and texted my contact at legal. Hypothetically, I wrote, how enforceable is the non-compete regarding clients I brought in prior to the 2018 merger under Colorado law? The 3 dots bubbled up immediately. The storm wasn't coming. It was here. And Preston had just handed me the umbrella, unaware that I was about to use it to impale him. If there is a hell, it is not fire and brimstone. It is a windowless conference room in downtown Denver with a glass whiteboard, stale bagels, and a middle manager explaining paradigm shifts to you for 4 hours straight. Wednesday morning, the prep session for the Thorn QBR. I walked in with a concise 3-page briefing document. It contained the KPIs Thorn actually cared about: on-time delivery rates, customs clearance velocity, and the error reduction metrics from the new Singapore hub. It was clean. It was factual. It was boring to anyone who didn't understand that in logistics, boring equals profitable. Preston was already there connecting his MacBook to the 85-inch monitor. He was wearing a vest today, one of those fleece Patagonia numbers that scream, I work in venture capital, even though we work in freight shipping. Sloan, he boomed, grab a seat. Let's make some magic. He pulled up a slide deck. It had 40 slides. 40. A 1-hour meeting with a man who checked his watch if you spoke for more than 30 seconds without making a point. Okay, look at this opener, Preston said, beaming. The first slide featured a stock photo of a diverse group of people high-fiving on top of a mountain. The text overlay read, Synergizing tomorrow's velocity today. I felt a migraine physically spawn behind my left eye. Preston, I said, keeping my voice level, Thorn isn't going to like this. He is a data guy. He wants to know why his cryotransit manifests in Hamburg were delayed by 4 hours last month and how we fixed it. Preston waved a hand, dismissing my entire career with a flick of his wrist. Details, Sloan. You are too in the weeds. This is a strategy review. We need to sell the vision. We need him to see that we are an AI-first, blockchain-enabled, cloud-native partner. We don't use blockchain, I pointed out. It is aspirational, he countered. He clicked to the next slide. It was a graph where the y-axis wasn't labeled, but the line went up. This is what I am talking about, emotional resonance. We spent the next 3 hours dismantling my work. Every time I tried to insert a slide about operational stability, Preston deleted it. Too dense, he would say, or boring, or my personal favorite, this doesn't pop. He replaced my analysis of the Q3 fuel surcharges with a slide titled The Journey to Wow, featuring a cartoon rocket ship. I am not making this up. A cartoon rocket ship. I need you to understand, I tried one last time, desperation clawing at my throat. Thorn is 70 years old. He built his empire on trucking and cold storage. If you show him a cartoon rocket ship, he is going to think we are mocking him. Preston stopped clicking. He turned to me, his face dropping the cool boss mask for a second to reveal the petty tyrant underneath. You know, Sloan, I am getting a lot of resistance from you. I was told you were a team player. The accusation hung in the air. The team player trap. The moment you disagree with a bad idea, you are difficult. I am trying to protect the relationship, I said. No, you are trying to protect your turf, Preston snapped. You have been gatekeeping this client for years. Maybe that is why the account is stale. You are afraid of new ideas because they expose the fact that you have been coasting. Coasting. I thought about the Christmas morning I spent on a conference call with customs agents in Mumbai. I thought about the time I personally drove through a blizzard to Denver International Airport to hand deliver a replacement part for Thorne's assembly line because the local courier was snowed in. Coasting, I repeated, tasting the word. It tasted like ash. Look, Preston sighed, checking his Apple Watch. I don't need you to present. Clearly, you are not on board with the new vision. I will handle the talking. You just be there to, take notes, answer technical questions if he gets bogged down, but let me drive. He was demoting me in my own meeting. He was cutting me out of the conversation I had sustained for nearly a decade. A younger version of me would have fought. I would have yelled. I would have gone to the CEO. But I looked at Preston, at his unearned confidence, his empty buzzwords, his complete lack of respect for the work, and something inside me shifted. It was the shift from employee to architect of your destruction. Okay, I said softly. Preston looked surprised. He expected a fight. Okay, you are the VP, I said, closing my notebook. If this is the direction you want to take, I will support you. You do the talking, I will just sit in. Great. Preston clapped again. See, that wasn't so hard. We are going to crush this, Sloan. Pivot to greatness. I walked back to my office. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer effort of holding back the rage. I sat down at my desk. I opened the exit folder again. I started a new document, incident log. Date, November 14th. Event, VP explicitly forbade me from presenting operational data. Instructed to prioritize aspirational marketing material over KPI reporting. Removed me from lead presenter role. I saved the file. Then I opened my email and found the calendar invite for the QBR. I blind copied it to my personal email address. Then I went to the printer. I printed out every single slide of Preston's presentation. The rocket ship, the high-fiving mountain climbers, the unlabeled graphs. I put them in a crisp manila folder. If he was going to drive the car off the cliff, I wasn't just going to watch. I was going to make sure the dash cam was recording in 4K. The meeting was in 48 hours. I spent them in silence. I didn't try to fix the slides. I didn't try to warn Garrison Wells. I just did my regular work, answered my emails, and waited. It is funny how calm you feel when you realize you have nothing left to lose. Preston thought he was sidelining me. He didn't realize he was setting me free. The boardroom on the 40th floor has a view of the entire city, but on Friday morning the blinds were drawn. Preston wanted the lighting to be cinematic for his projector. Marcus Thorne arrived at 9:58 a.m. He is a man who takes up space not by being loud, but by being dense with gravity. He wore a gray wool suit that probably cost more than Preston's car, and he carried nothing but a single fountain pen. No laptop, no phone. He walked in and shook my hand firmly. "Sloan, good to see you. And you, Marcus," I said. It was the only time I used his first name. It was our privilege. Then Preston swooped in. "Mr. Thorne, Preston Blake, VP of Strategic Growth. Huge fan of what you have built. Truly disruptive stuff." Thorne looked at Preston's extended hand, then at his face. He shook it briefly, like he was touching a wet railing. "Disruptive," Thorne repeated, the word rolling around his mouth like a stone. "We sell gravel and biologics logistics, Mr. Blake. I don't disrupt, I deliver." "Exactly." Preston pivoted undeterred. "But how we deliver, that is where the magic happens. Have a seat." Thorne sat at the head of the table. I sat to his right, my usual spot. Preston stood at the front, clicker in hand. "Gentlemen, Sloan," Preston began, dimming the lights even further. "Let's talk about the future." The first slide hit the screen. "Synergizing tomorrow's velocity today." I heard Thorne inhale slowly through his nose. It was a long, ragged sound. Preston launched into a speech. He talked about vertical integration of ideation. He used the phrase blue sky thinking 3 times in the first 5 minutes. He paced around the room, making big, sweeping gestures. I watched Thorne. He wasn't looking at the screen. He was looking at his hands folded on the mahogany table. He was perfectly still. 10 minutes in, Preston clicked to the rocket ship slide. We want to take your logistics into the stratosphere. We are talking about a complete reimagining of your supply chain ecosystem. Thorne raised a hand just 2 inches off the table. Preston stopped mid-sentence. Yes. Questions? I love questions. Where is the Q3 report? Thorne asked. His voice was quiet, raspy, and dangerous. Preston blinked. Well, we are looking forward, Marcus. The Q3 numbers are in the appendix. What I really want to focus on is, I lost 2 shipments in Rotterdam last week, Thorne said. Sloan fixed it. I want to know why it happened. I want to know the variance on fuel costs. I want to know why your new API integration failed 3 times on Monday. Preston froze. He didn't know any of this. He hadn't read the briefing. He hadn't listened to me. Right, Preston stammered, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Technical hiccups, growing pains, if you look at the holistic view. Sloan, Thorne said, ignoring Preston completely. He turned his chair slightly to face me. Explain the Rotterdam variance. I opened my mouth to speak. I had the numbers memorized. I knew exactly what had happened. A dock strike combined with a software patch glitch that I had manually overridden. But before I could get a word out, Preston stepped between us. He literally, physically stepped between me and the client, blocking my line of sight. Mr. Thorne, Preston said, his voice taking on a condescending edge, Sloan doesn't need to bore you with the minutiae. She is support staff. She handles the tickets. I am here to discuss the strategy. We can have the tech team email you a PDF later if you really care about the small stuff. The room went absolute zero. Support staff. 7 years, late nights, holidays missed, millions of dollars saved. Support staff. I looked at the back of Preston's cheap suit. Then I looked at Thorne. He was staring at Preston with an expression of pure, unadulterated disbelief. I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor was loud in the silence. Sloan? Preston turned, looking annoyed. We are in the middle of... You are right, Preston, I said. My voice was calm, scarily calm. I am just support staff, and it sounds like you have the strategy all figured out. I picked up my notebook and picked up my Mont Blanc pen. Where are you going? Preston hissed, his eyes widening. I looked at Thorne. I held his gaze for a long second. A silent message passed between us. I am not doing this anymore. I am excusing myself, I said. I wouldn't want to bore you with the minutiae. I walked to the door. Sloan, sit down, Preston barked, panic finally cracking his voice. I didn't turn around. I opened the heavy oak door and stepped into the hallway. As the door clicked shut behind me, I heard Thorne's voice loud and clear for the first time. Sit down, Mr. Blake, and turn on the lights. I walked down the hallway. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It had stopped. I felt light, weightless. I walked past the open-plan cubicles. I walked past the break room. I walked straight to the elevator. I didn't go back to my desk. I didn't pack my things. I pressed the button for the lobby. I was done. But the game had just begun. I took the light rail home at 11 a.m. It is a strange time to be on the train. The car was empty except for a few tourists and a guy sleeping with a backpack. I sat there, knees pressed together, staring at my reflection in the dark glass opposite me. I looked the same. Same blazer, same hair, but I was unemployed. Well, technically, I was insubordinate, but let's not split hairs. My phone started buzzing before the train even reached Union Station. Preston. 5 missed calls. Preston. Sloan, get back in here immediately. Preston. This is unacceptable behavior. Preston. Pick up the phone. Garrison Wells. Sloan, what is going on? Call me. I turned the phone to do not disturb. Then I turned it off completely. When I got to my apartment, a quiet, overpriced Elodo loft with a view of Coors Field, I didn't pour a glass of wine. I made a pour-over black coffee. I changed out of my suit into sweatpants, but I kept the blazer on. It felt like armor. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my personal laptop. Rule number 1 of corporate warfare: he who has the documentation wins. I had been forwarding emails to myself for years. Nothing proprietary, nothing that violated NDA, just CYA, cover your ass threads. Decisions made over my objections. Warnings I had given that were ignored. Praise from clients. But now, I needed to be specific. I spent the next 6 hours drafting a document. It wasn't a resignation letter. It was a memo of record. I detailed the QBR prep, the refusal to include Q3 data, the specific instruction to mislead the client with aspirational metrics, the public denigration of my role. I wasn't going to send it yet. This was ammunition. Don't fire your gun until you see the whites of their eyes. At 4 p.m., I turned my phone back on. It vibrated for a solid 2 minutes. 30 texts, 12 voicemails. I listened to one from Preston. Sloan, look, emotions were high. I get it. Maybe I was a bit rough, but walking out on a $5 billion client, that is career suicide. You need to come back, apologize to Thorne, and tell him you were feeling ill. We can spin this. Call me. Career suicide. He still didn't get it. He thought Thorne was mad because I left. He didn't realize Thorne was mad because Preston stayed. Then a text popped up from a number that wasn't saved in my contacts, but I knew by heart. Marcus Thorne. That was the most impressive presentation I have seen in years. I stared at the screen. A small, genuine smile touched my lips. Me. I aimed to please. Marcus Thorne. He doesn't know anything, does he? He likes rocket ships. Marcus Thorne. I am flying back to Zurich tonight. We need to talk. Not about this contract, about the future. Are you legally exposed? My heart did a little flip. This was it. The lifeline. Me. I am reviewing my non-compete. It is standard boilerplate, restricted from soliciting current clients for 12 months. Marcus Thorne. Soliciting means you ask me. It doesn't say anything about me asking you. I walked over to my bookshelf and pulled down my employment contract from 2016. I flipped to page 14, clause 8b, non-solicitation. He was right. The language was specific. The employee shall not directly or indirectly solicit, induce, or attempt to induce. If Thorne fired Ironclad Logistics and hired me, I hadn't solicited a thing. He walked. Me. Correct. Marcus Thorne. Good. Sit tight. Let him sweat for a week. I am pausing all renewals. I put the phone down. Let him sweat. I decided not to go into the office on Monday or Tuesday. I had accrued 6 weeks of sick leave that I never took because I was too busy saving the company. I logged into the HR portal from home. Request for leave. Medical. Stress-induced. Technically true. Preston was extremely stressful. I spent the next few days in a strange limbo. I watched the chaos unfold from a distance. My work email, which I could still access on my phone, was a dumpster fire. Subject, urgent. Thorne's shipment stuck in customs. From Preston Blake to Sloan. Sloan, I know you are sick, but we have a situation in Shanghai. Who is the contact for the port authority? I can't find it in the CRM. I looked at the email. I knew the contact. It was Director Lin. He didn't use the CRM. He used WeChat. He only answered if you started the message with a specific greeting in Mandarin. I deleted the email. Another one came in an hour later. From CEO. Sloan, we need to talk. Preston says you are ghosting us. The Thorne account is at risk. I didn't reply. I was learning the power of absence. When you are the one holding up the ceiling, you don't need to push it down on top of them. You just have to step away and let gravity do the work. By Wednesday, the silence from my end was deafening, but the noise from their end was about to get a whole lot louder. There is a specific kind of joy in watching a fire you didn't start, but certainly aren't going to put out. Day 4 of my medical leave. I was at Crema Coffee House, drinking a latte that cost $6, reading a book about gardening. I don't garden. I just like the metaphor of pruning dead branches. My phone was still blowing up. The tone had shifted from anger to desperation. The thing about Preston's strategy to cut support hours, he actually did it. He implemented it the Monday I didn't show up. He sent a memo to the Thorne team, which was now just 2 terrified junior analysts and him, saying that all non-critical communication with the client would be routed through a central ticketing system. No more direct calls, no more texting, just tickets. Our client, moving highly sensitive biological goods across 40 international borders, the collapse happened on a Thursday. I found out because the junior analyst, a sharp kid named Julian, who I had been mentoring, sent me a message on LinkedIn. Julian, Sloan, I know I shouldn't message you, but I am literally shaking. Preston told us to ignore the priority flag on the Munich shipment because he said it was a system glitch. It wasn't a glitch. It is phase 3 biologic therapies. Been sitting on the tarmac for 12 hours. They are spoiling. I stared at the screen. Biologics. This wasn't just corporate politics anymore. This was negligence. I had a choice. I could intervene, save the shipment, and prove my value, or I could let Preston own his mistake. But these were critical medical therapies. People needed them. I sighed, closed my book, and pulled up my contacts. I couldn't fix it officially, but I could fix it quietly. I texted a contact at the Munich airport ground crew. Lucas, check container 404 Bravo. Temperature gauge might be faulty. Manual override to cryo storage ASAP. Do it as a favor to me. Lucas, for you, done. But tell your new boss he is an idiot. He filed the paperwork as dry goods. I screenshotted the exchange, added it to the exit folder. I texted Julian back. Don't worry about Munich, it is handled. But keep your head down. Document everything Preston tells you to do. Back at the office, the CEO finally decided to step in. He didn't call me. He sent Victoria Davenport. Victoria was the head of HR. She was one of those women who treated the company like a church and the employee handbook like the Bible. She spoke in hushed, reverent tones about corporate culture and family. She called me at noon. Sloan, she said, her voice dripping with artificial concern. We are so worried about you. This silence, it is not like you. We are family here. You can't just abandon your family because of a little disagreement with a cousin. She called Preston my cousin. I am under a lot of stress, Victoria, I said, channeling my inner soap opera actress. My doctor advised a complete disconnect. I understand, Victoria cooed, but Preston is really trying to bridge the gap. He feels you were resistant to his leadership. He wants to welcome you back. He is even willing to let you keep your title. You will report to him directly for daily task management. Daily task management. They wanted to micromanage the person who built the department. Victoria, I said, did Preston tell you about the Munich shipment? The what? No. We are talking about your attitude, Sloan. Ask him about the biologic therapies, Victoria. Ask him why the client's legal team just downloaded the audit logs for the last 48 hours. What? Her voice spiked. I am resting now, Victoria. I will update you on my return date next week. I hung up. The audit logs part was a bluff, but it was a calculated one. I knew Thorne's legal team, they were sharks. If they smelled blood, they would be downloading everything. 10 minutes later, I got a notification. System alert. User admin has initiated a full data export of the Thorne account. It wasn't Thorne's team. It was Preston. He was panicking. He was trying to find out what I knew. Maybe he was trying to delete evidence of his own incompetence. He didn't realize that the system logs every export, including his. I sat back and sipped my coffee. The cracks weren't just in the foundation anymore. The walls were buckling, and the best part, I hadn't even resigned yet. I was still on the payroll accruing sick pay while watching them burn the building down around themselves. Then the email came, the one I had been waiting for, from Marcus Thorne to CEO Garrison Wells. CC Sloan personal email. Subject, Notice of Contract Review. Gentlemen, effective immediately, we are suspending all new initiatives. We will be conducting a review of our service level agreement violations over the past week. We expect a formal response regarding the Munich incident by EOD. P.S. Please ensure Sloan is present at the upcoming strategy summit. Her absence has been noted. Boom. CC'd my personal email. He wanted them to know I was in the loop. He wanted them to know he knew. Preston was dead. He just didn't know enough to lie down yet. They asked me to come in on Monday to discuss a path forward. I dressed for a funeral, all black. Stiletto heels that clicked like gunshots on the tile floor. I didn't bring a notebook. I didn't bring a pen. When I walked into the office, the atmosphere had changed. The receptionist stopped typing. Junior analysts looked at me with wide, terrified eyes like I was a ghost returning to haunt the castle. Julian gave me a tiny, covert thumbs up from his cubicle. I winked. I walked into the CEO's office. Preston was there pacing. He looked terrible. His tan had faded into a sallow yellow. His suit looked slept in. Garrison Wells was sitting behind his desk looking like he wished he could dissolve into his ergonomic chair. Sloan, Garrison said, forcing a smile. Thank you for coming in. We need to reset. Reset, I repeated, remaining standing. Look, Preston started, his voice jagged. We had a rocky start. Okay, I admit it, I am a disruptor. Sometimes I break things, but we need you back on the box. Thorne is difficult right now. Difficult, I said, or litigious? Preston flinched. We need you to smooth it over, Preston said, stepping closer. Call him. Tell him the Munich thing was a vendor error. Tell him we are on top of it. Use that charm of yours. He wanted me to lie. He wanted me to cash in 7 years of integrity to cover his 3 days of stupidity. I can't do that, Preston, I said. Why not? He snapped. It is your job. You are the client solutions lead. Not anymore, I said. I reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out a white envelope. I placed it on the CEO's desk. This is my resignation, effective 2 weeks from today. I will spend those 2 weeks transitioning my files, but I will not speak to the client. I will not lie to the client, and I will certainly not report to him. I pointed at Preston. You can't quit, Preston yelled. We have the summit next week. You have to be there. Oh, I will be there, I said. Thorne requested my presence. As a courtesy to the client, I will attend. But I will be sitting in the audience watching you disrupt. Garrison looked at the letter. Sloan, please, let's talk numbers. A raise, more equity. It is not about the money, I said. And for the first time, it really wasn't. It was about the principle. It was about the fact that they looked at my work, my life's work, and called it support staff. I have a non-compete, I said, preempting their threat. I know it. I wrote half of it with legal back in 2016. I won't solicit your clients. I won't steal your data. I am going to take a nice long vacation. You are bluffing, Preston sneered. You have nowhere to go. You are aged out of the market. You think some startup is going to hire a 45-year-old logistics manager. There it was. The ageism, the misogyny. It all spilled out in one ugly sentence. I smiled. A real smile. Preston, I said softly, you think the market is LinkedIn and algorithms. The market is people, and unlike you, I haven't pissed off every person I have ever met. I turned to leave. If you walk out that door, Preston threatened, I will make sure you never work in this industry again. I paused at the door. Preston, by next week, you won't even be working in this industry. I walked out. I went to my desk and started packing. Not much. Just the photo of my dog, my Mont Blanc pen, and the little crystal award I won 3 years ago. Julian rolled his chair over. Are you really leaving? He whispered. Yeah, Julian, I am. What am I going to do? He looked panicked. I handed him a sticky note with a phone number on it. You are going to wait 3 weeks, then you are going to call this number. It is a rogue recruiter, I know. She places people in firms that actually pay overtime. He took the note like it was a holy relic. I left the building at 2 p.m. The sun was shining. I felt like I had just dropped a heavy backpack I had been carrying for decades, but I wasn't going on vacation. I went home, opened my laptop, and registered a new LLC, SV Solutions. I didn't have any clients yet. I couldn't ask for them, but I knew something Preston didn't. I knew that Thorne was coming to the summit not to renew, but to execute, and I had a front row seat. The Q4 Strategy Summit was held at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Chandeliers, shrimp cocktails, and a room full of people pretending everything was fine when the stock price was down. I wore a red dress. Not look at me red, blood in the water red. I arrived early and took a seat near the back. I wasn't an employee anymore, technically. I was serving out my notice period. I was a ghost at the feast. Preston was on stage doing a sound check. He looked manic. He was shouting at an AV technician about the bass levels on his intro music. Yes, he had intro music. Eye of the Tiger. I wish I was joking. The room filled up. Board members, investors, key clients. I saw Garrison shaking hands, his smile looking more and more like a grimace. Preston spotted me in the back. He glared. He actually made a cutthroat gesture, then realized a board member was watching and turned it into an awkward collar adjustment. Then, the doors at the back of the room opened. Silence rippled through the room. It wasn't just a quiet, it was a vacuum. Marcus Thorne walked in. He wasn't alone. He had his entourage, his CFO, his legal counsel, and his CTO. They moved in a phalanx, a V formation of expensive suits and serious faces. Usually, clients sit at the round tables near the front. Thorne didn't sit. He stood at the back, arms crossed. Preston tapped the microphone. Thump, thump. All right, let's get this party started, he yelled. Welcome everyone to the future of logistics. The music started. The lights flashed. It was embarrassing. It was like watching a magician try to perform at a crash site. I want to welcome our most valued partner, Preston said, gesturing to Thorne. Marcus Thorne. Marcus, come on down. We have a special seat for you right here in the front. Thorne didn't move. The spotlight swung over to him, illuminating his stone face. I am fine where I am, Thorne said. His voice didn't need a microphone. It carried. Oh, okay, Preston stammered. Well, folks, let's dive in. As you know, we have been pivoting to a lean, agile methodology. Preston launched into his deck. The rocket ships were back. The buzzwords flew. Paradigm, synergy, blockchain. I watched Thorne. He was watching Preston with the detached curiosity of a biologist studying a particularly stupid bug. Then, Preston put up a slide. Case study, Thorne Global, a partnership reimagined. It showed a graph of efficiency savings, claimed that by streamlining communication, aka the ticketing system, they had saved 20% in operational costs. Thorne leaned over to his CFO and whispered something. The CFO nodded and handed Thorne a folder. Preston kept talking. And we believe this model is scalable. We can do this for all of you. He was selling his failure as a feature. I looked around the room. The other clients were nodding politely. They didn't know. They didn't know about the biologics. They didn't know about the silence. I felt a vibration in my clutch. A text. From Marcus Thorne to Sloan. Are you ready? I looked across the room. Thorne caught my eye. He nodded. Me. Always. Thorne stepped forward into the light. Excuse me, he said. Preston stopped. Marcus, we usually save Q&A for the end, buddy. This isn't a question, Thorne said. He walked down the center aisle. The room parted for him like the Red Sea. Mr. Blake, Thorne said, reaching the stage. He didn't climb the stairs. He stood at the bottom, looking up at Preston. That graph, the efficiency savings. Yes, impressive, right? Preston beamed. Those savings came from firing the support staff who monitored my cryo-transit manifests, Thorne said, which resulted in $400,000 of spoiled pharmaceutical biologics in Munich last Thursday. A gasp went through the room. Board members sat up straight. Preston's smile faltered. That was a glitch. We fixed it. No, Thorne said. You didn't fix it. Sloan fixed it from a coffee shop while she was on leave. Preston looked at me. The whole room turned to look at me. I don't have a contract with Ironclad Logistics, Thorne announced, his voice booming now. I have a contract with Competence, and it seems Competence has left the building. He turned to the board of directors. I am invoking the immediate termination clause of my contract due to gross negligence. You can't do that. Garrison jumped up. Marcus, please. I just did, Thorne said. My legal team filed the papers 10 minutes ago. He turned back to me. Sloan, he said, are you coming? I stood up, my red dress smoothed out. I picked up my purse. I think I will, I said. I walked down the aisle. I walked past the CEO, who looked like he was having a stroke. I walked past the investors. I met Thorne in the aisle. Where are we going? I asked quietly. Lunch, he said. And then to talk about your new consultancy. I have some friends who are very unhappy with their current logistics providers. We walked out of the ballroom together. Behind us, the feedback from the microphone screeched, drowning out Preston's desperate stuttering. It was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. We went to Garden Grace down the street, the kind of steakhouse with white tablecloths and waiters who don't introduce themselves by name. Thorne ordered a bottle of wine that was older than Preston. To disruption, he toasted, a twinkle in his eye. To competence, I corrected, clinking my glass against his. By the time the appetizers arrived, my phone was vibrating off the table. Julian, Holy hell, Sloan, the CEO is screaming. Preston is crying, literally crying. Security is escorting him out. Legal. Sloan, need to discuss your NDA. Recruiter. Sloan, hearing wild things, call me. I turned my phone over. So, Thorne said, cutting his steak. SV Solutions, tell me about it. It is a boutique firm, I improvised, specializing in high-touch, crisis-proof logistics for legacy clients. No apps, no tickets, just answers. I will take a retainer, Thorne said. Same rate as Ironclad was charging me, but you keep the overhead. I did the math in my head. If I took Thorne's account at the agency rate, without the agency bloat, I would make more in a month than I made in a year at Ironclad. Deal, I said. And, Thorne added, I have 3 friends, CEOs of manufacturing firms. They were in that room. They just texted me. They want your number. Send it, I said. Back at the Ritz-Carlton, the apocalypse was happening. According to Julian, my embedded spy, the board held an emergency meeting in the hallway. The stock had dropped another 8% in the hour since Thorne walked out. News travels fast on Wall Street. Preston was fired before he left the stage. They didn't even let him get his coat. Security walked him out through the kitchen so he wouldn't be seen by the investors. Garrison tried to damage control, but it was too late. The Thorne walkout was already a story. It was the signal that the ship was sinking. Over the next 48 hours, Ironclad lost 4 more major accounts. All of them called me. I didn't steal them. I didn't solicit them. They called me. Sloan, we heard what happened. Can you take us on? I can, I told them, but my rates have gone up, and I don't do PowerPoint. I hired Julian a week later. I doubled his salary and gave him the title of Director of Operations. He cried. I rented a small office, not in a glass tower, in a historic downtown brownstone. Hardwood floors, real plants. The lawsuit from Ironclad came, of course. They tried to sue me for poaching. Thorne's lawyers responded with a letter that was essentially a legal go off yourself, citing the breach of contract and negligence regarding the Munich shipment. Ironclad dropped the suit in 3 days. They couldn't afford the discovery phase. They knew what I had in mind, the exit folder. 6 months later, SV Solutions has 12 employees. We handle $12 billion in logistics contracts. We don't have a strategy VP. We have an espresso machine that actually works, and a rule that no meeting can last longer than 20 minutes. I bought the building. My phone vibrated on the mahogany desk. Another frantic LinkedIn notification from Preston Blake, begging for a consultant role at my new firm, followed by a Bloomberg news alert about Ironclad Logistics officially filing for Chapter 11. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just dragged his message into the trash, approved the liquidation acquisition of Ironclad's remaining assets for pennies on the dollar, and watched my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling glass of my penthouse office. They wanted to trim the fat. I just butchered the whole damn hog.